Hi everyone, I want to get started here, but before I do, can you confirm if you guys can both hear and see me? Just go ahead and type something in the chat or the question box, then you know that you can indeed hear me. Awesome. Okay. Well, without further ado, very excited to get started on this topic. Today, we're going to be going over how to convert your home into an investment property. I'll be the speaker today. My name is Cameron Carlson, and this is a pretty cool topic. We've had it requested from several of you, and so we threw it on the books, and here we are today. So a little bit about me, just to get started here, is I'm a licensed realtor. I got my bachelor's in bachelor's of business administration from Vanguard University. I have a background in real estate accounting, loan underwriting for private lending, and property management. I've facilitated real estate transactions in seven different states, and I'm actually currently a Marshall Reddick Mortgage Fund investor. I'll briefly talk about what that means in a second. And regarding the property management side and really turning your home into a rental, I've helped over 120 owners this year onboard into our management services. So really excited to continue that going into the coming year. Topics we're going to cover today. So we're going to talk about what makes a good rental property. We're going to talk about how to get your home rent ready. We're going to talk about determining market rent and provide you some leasing tips, go over what leasing looks like. We're going to talk about tenant screening and tenant placement. And we're lastly going to talk about professional property management. So what we expect from you as an attendee. Well, first of all, we expect you to learn something. Love if you guys could take notes. Feel free to write things down, type things out, ask any questions you have in the chat. We have a couple people online that might be able to respond, and if not, we'll go ahead and reach out after. Write down any more questions you have, and we'll go over those on a consultation, maybe some more in-depth or specific questions. And then be ready to write down any links to our website or different resources that we'll go over at the very end of the presentation. And then I will let you know that the full presentation and slide deck will be sent within 24 hours. And after the presentation, there'll be a very, very quick survey just with a couple questions that we would love and appreciate if you guys can go over as well. So some of you might be familiar with Marshall Reddick Real Estate. Others of you, this might be your very first time. So to kind of explain who Marshall Reddick is, basically we can divide it up into four different sections. First, Marshall Reddick is a real estate brokerage. Whether you're looking to buy and sell your primary residence or investment property, that's kind of where we start. Second, we are a professional full service property manager, and we'll talk more about our management services and what that looks like later in the presentation. Third is, and they're kind of looped together, third and fourth, but basically split at the same time. We're a private money lender. Sometimes if you can't qualify for conventional financing, maybe you're capped out, or if you're looking to do a fix and flip or new construction, we offer private financing options. And last is we have an investment fund. So with that investment fund, that's going to be investing into those private loans. And then you as a fund investor, which I myself am a fund investor, collect a quarterly distribution. And if you have more questions about that, we can talk on a later date. But I want to introduce you guys to the team here. So these are pictures from some of our different offices. Starting in the top left, that's one of our Texas offices in New Braunfels. And these are all of our team members. These team members are comprised of, you're going to see agents, you're going to see property management staff, leasing agents. You're going to also see some of our accountants, our private lending team. Really, everybody are going to be in these photos. Top right, you're going to be seeing our San Antonio office there. And then going around to the bottom right, that's going to be our Clarksville team. I'm super excited. They just got Clarksville's best real estate and property management team this year. So that was cool to see them voted that. The middle is going to be our Newport Beach, basically our Orange County, California team, where I'm based out of. And then bottom left is going to be our Cape Coral, Florida office. So we're located in 11 major metropolitans. And if we start here on the left, you're going to see we've got Bay Area, Los Angeles, Orange County, Riverside. And then moving to Texas, we have locations in Austin, New Braunfels, San Antonio and Houston. In Tennessee, we do business in Clarksville and Nashville. And then in Florida, we do business in Cape Coral. So let's talk about what makes a good rental property. Well, one of the first things we're looking for is, does your property have good cash flow and growth potential? What I mean by that is, when your rental income comes in and you have all of your fixed expenses, what is going to be that leftover number? Do you have potential for a profit? We want to see properties that have potential for a profit. We don't want to be in the negative. So we're looking for good cash flow potential. Also, are you going to be able to increase the rent a good amount each year? Are you looking at this as a 15-year hold? Is it going to increase? Is the home going to increase in value? These are all good factors when looking at, will your home make a good rental property? Second is, good rental properties are going to be unfurnished with the necessary appliances. What I mean by that is, when you're taking a look at the rental market, we often see that about 95% of renters are looking for an unfurnished home that at least has the necessary appliances, that being stove, that being dishwasher, a refrigerator, and in some cases a washer dryer. I know specifically in California, Orange County, a lot of tenants prefer having a washer dryer. That might not be the other case for other markets, but it's really market specific. Something else is your home rent ready? What is rent ready? Well, we'll talk about that in a second, but we want to make sure your home, if it's going to make a good rental, is ready for someone to move in. Rent ready standards are very specific, and we'll teach you about those here in a second. How much liability does your home carry, right? When I'm talking about liability, a couple of liabilities that we might be referring to, maybe there's a pool in the backyard, or there's an above ground hot tub, or maybe you have a playground. How can we minimize that liability? A way to minimize some of those examples I'm talking about, or reduce it in the best way possible, is maybe we remove the playground, or if there's a way to remove the above ground hot tub, or put the proper fencing around the pool. That way, when it comes to a rental, you as the owner have less liability. And last but not least, it's really important that you have professional management on your home to take care of your property. So what also makes a good market? Well, when we're talking about good markets, first, as an investor, as someone who's going to be owning the home, we want to look to see if the market has good economic growth, good job stability, low unemployment rates. We want to take a look to see if the market has a high rental demand. Is there a good amount of tenants versus owner occupants? Is there a good economic diversity? Are there good necessary different industries? Maybe we're talking about military, medical, insurance, IT. Are the houses affordable, right? Is this a scalable process? Maybe you can buy multiple homes. Maybe it's an affordable home for the rental value. Is it a landlord-friendly market? Are the laws and regulations more favored towards landlords or more favored towards the tenants? Is there a good education system in place, right? We want to see either good school districts in the suburbs. Maybe it's you've got a college town. That's going to make for a good education. And then reliable property management. What I mean by reliable property management is there a good selection of property management options? If there's only one property manager in the area and they're not doing a very good job, you're kind of stuck with them. But if you have a very large list of property management companies, you have the opportunity to choose the best of the best, and they're all going to be competitive with one another because they know there's other options out there. So now let's talk about how to get your home rent ready. And I have that in quotations because that's kind of like the industry standard when it comes to a property being ready for a tenant to move in. So the best way to explain this in one sentence, and I know this sentence is somewhat wordy, but I think it really sums it up the best. The purpose of making your property rent ready is to decrease liability and deferred maintenance cost while making your property an attractive rental option to high quality tenants at the highest rent possible in the shortest amount of time. And we'll kind of break down the small segments of this one sentence here in the following slides, but essentially, when we're talking about your property being rent ready, we want to take a look at the most necessary things. First, we want to take care of any maintenance issues. Is the garbage disposal broken? Can we fix it? Can we fix the fridge? Is there a broken door that doesn't close all the way? Those are going to be your first things to look at when it comes to making your home ready for a tenant to move in. We want to take a look at, are there any wall repairs? Are there any dents, any holes, any damage? We want to make sure that the walls are all good. And then taking a look at paint. Tenants prefer a home that they can walk into and envision themselves moving in. What I mean by that is we would always say a good rent-ready home is a home that has all the walls patched and painted in a neutral paint color throughout the entire house. That's what makes a good rental. Maybe that might be a good white color or a Swiss coffee, but if there's really dark accent walls, while it might be attractive to some renters, it might not for others. So what we see as a good rent-ready standard is to have a consistent paint color throughout the entire home. Maybe we need to resurface the floor, maybe we need to reglaze the bathtubs or the showers. That's something that we would do in the rent-ready process to make sure your home's ready. And something else might be just removing any liability like we talked about previously. So let's take a look at kind of an example of a rent-ready checklist. This is more of what Marshall Reddick does, and we actually do this online. So whether that be over a phone, computer, or iPad, we actually have a checklist that we go through when we're inspecting your home to make sure it's rent ready. We're going to go through each room of the house and we're going to check all of the categories, whether that be flooring, walls, doors. We want to make sure the locks work, the appliances work, is the fireplace clean, are there the proper smoke alarms, carbon monoxide, things like that. And we're very detail oriented, and it's important to make sure that you meet all of these standards, because oftentimes what we find is if you miss something on the checklist, or if the property's not rent ready, that's going to either turn into an upset tenant, or it's going to turn into a maintenance request immediately after the tenant moves in. On the other side too, when you're actually leasing it out, your home doesn't show well if someone can't imagine themselves moving into it. Maybe they walk in and there's a couple light bulbs out and there's some damage on the walls. They're not going to really feel like the home's taken care of, and it makes it harder to lease that home out. And so when we're taking in this inventory, we're going to actually provide everything you see here to vendors. And this is how we get the home rent ready. And I would never say just get one quote. If you can, get at least 2 to 3 estimates and have the vendors understand that you're getting other estimates. So a sample of what an estimate might look like. This here is a rent ready estimate. If you take a look, there's details that the vendor provides, but the vendor should basically turn your checklist into an estimate. So all of the items that you have on the checklist, they should be able to itemize out for you and give you a dollar cost on these items for the rent ready repair. Of course, our goal is to make sure that we're cutting down costs. And personally, as a rule of thumb, you take care of any habitability issues first. So maybe there's a recommendation from the vendor saying, hey, it's time to upgrade the cabinets, but you don't really want to upgrade the cabinets. However, you need to replace the smoke detectors. That's where you would stop as an owner and say, we're okay with replacing the smoke detectors, but let's hold off on the cabinets for now. I think they've got a couple more years in them. That's really, when you're talking with vendors, of course, they're going to throw in other recommendations. And a good rule of thumb that I always recommend too is when you get the final bid, especially on larger bids, just let the vendor know, I like this bid, can you do it for 5% less, and we're good to go. Even if you like the bid the way it was, most every vendor understands that you're working to get a good deal and you're working to turn your home around cost effectively. And so when you say that, they're actually good and they say, okay, that's fine, 5% less. That's just a small piece of advice that I always give. I used to, like I said, when I worked in property management, I used to do rent-ready turns. So I would be doing the inspections and I'd be gathering the bids, and I would actually do that on behalf of the owners here at Marshall Reddick, because I was just request at the very end that the owner just do it, or the vendor do a 5% discount. So something that we see as far as rent readies go, good property managers are going to basically understand the property class of the home. They're going to understand the target audience, and they're going to select the appropriate service providers for these property classes. And to kind of explain what I mean by that is different property classes are going to require different contractors and different levels of maintenance. If you have a luxury class property, maybe a coastal property or a property that you're going for a very high rental amount, you might have to have a vendor that's going to provide high-end finishes. At the same time, you don't need high-end finishes if you have a C-class property that you're really trying to maximize cash flow and cut down any costs, and you're okay because you know that you're not renting the home out to executive business level, you're rather renting it out to maybe your blue collar hourly employees. So it's really important. And it's important to know that we have vendors that can be licensed and insured, and these vendors can get the necessary permits for work that needs permits, and they don't get permits for work that doesn't need permits. These are all important steps that your property manager should take care of. So let's talk about determining market rent and go over some leasing tips. When we're talking about leasing your property, let's first go over the goals of leasing your rental property. And a lot of these are going to be goals from the leasing agent side of it. So first and foremost, when your property is being leased out, we want to make sure that we secure the highest dollar amount possible for your rent. And of course, that's whatever the market allows. We also want to make sure that we're getting the best tenants possible. By that, I mean tenants that pass all the screening requirements. They're going to take good care of your home. They're going to mow the lawn when it needs to be mown. They're going to, they're going to put a drain catcher to make sure that the hair doesn't get clogged in the drain. They're just going to do a good job taking care of your home. That's what we mean by placing good tenants. And typically, you find good tenants when they're screened properly. Something else is you need constant communication. If you have a leasing agent that's leasing your property, they should be in communication with you at least once a week, maybe twice a week. You should have a set date that they're going to be communicating with you. And I'll talk more about that here in a second, but communication is very important when it comes to leasing your home to make sure that everything's done quickly. Also, we want to rent the property in as little time as possible. That's also going along with that communication. The longer your property is on the market, the less time you're not collecting rent. So what we mean is sometimes you might need to reduce the rental price in order to rent your home out quicker. And if you're finding that there's not a lot of traction on your home, it's really important to weigh the cost benefits of having a price reduction versus having more time with your property being vacant. And a lot of times we find that if you're getting into a rock and a hard spot and the property is not leasing out, a price reduction is very, very good because you're going to find people that will rent it for a lower price. And last is you always want to make sure that you're using the best lease agreement possible with the proper terms and addenda. And usually that's going to be the state lease agreement. I would highly recommend it. If it ever comes time where you go to court or there's a lawsuit or anybody's questioning it, it's really easy to combat that by saying this is what the state's lease agreement says. And then use a company that has seen a lot of different tenants and situations and knows how to put the proper addendums in to make sure that you're protected as the owner. Personally, Marshall Reddick has a little under 3,000 properties under management, and we've been doing this since the 70s. So you can imagine we've seen a little bit of everything, and our lease agreements are so long that tenants are like, am I reading a novel? But that's really important for you. And like I said, if you have any questions, I know I'm kind of saying a lot here, feel free to type in the chat. So continuing on, something that a good property manager will do for you when it comes to leasing is, first of all, they're going to price your property accordingly to the current market. If we price your property too low, then your property is going to lease out very quick, but you're not maximizing your dollar amount. If we price it too high, it's going to sit for a long time in the market. You're going to lose out on rental income and have to drop the price anyways. Maybe there's a chance it does get rented at that high amount, but typically if you're overpriced, you might not be able to find a tenant in a timely manner. Something else is they're going to assign dedicated licensed leasing agents. It's really important that you have an actual in-person agent that's working with you and not just an automated system. Also, the tenants need to be manually screened, and it needs to be a very thorough screening process. We'll talk about what you should expect on a screening process, but maybe there's a tenant coordinator whose only job is to communicate and screen tenants, and that's something that's really important, is they're familiar with how to properly do the screening. Last is we want to make sure that there are detailed move-in and move-out inspections conducted. You need to make sure that you have inspections with photos and notes, because if you're going to take hundreds and hundreds of photos of your property before and after move out, it protects you as the owner. So when maybe the tenant's moving out and they damage the walls by moving out their furniture and they say that was there prior to move-in, you could say, well, I have the photo right here of before and the photo right here of after, same exact photo. I know for sure that it wasn't there before move-in. And it makes it easy for you to deduct charges from the tenant's deposit. So let's talk about determining how much your property will rent for. The best way to explain it is your property is going to rent for a similar price to comparable properties in your neighborhood. And all of these comparable properties are going to have similar features. Maybe those might be similar beds, baths, square footage, similar year built, amenity. Maybe your property has a 3-car garage with a driveway. So we want to find similar properties that have rented with 3-car garages in the driveway, or maybe it's a 1-car garage and no driveway. Likewise, we're going to find properties that match the criteria of your home, and those are going to make for the best comparables to understand what your property is going to be worth. Your property is not going to rent for more than what it's worth. And we say that because tenants are not going to pay more than what they should for the property. Something that you should really get is a comparable report called a current market analysis, or in short terms, a CMA. CMAs are performed by professional agents, and basically the way they do it is they use the multiple listing service to gather current market data, and they're going to compile all of these basically comparable properties into an analysis, send you that analysis, and then you guys can go over it together. You'll see photos of the comparable properties. Maybe the properties have similar remodels done, or you're going to obviously note that they're going to have similar attributes. There's really no other way to determine the market price of a rental than comparables. So let's talk about the leasing agent's role and their responsibility. First and foremost, leasing agent they should be communicating with you over the phone. When you have a leasing agent, they should call you, they should talk to you, they should get to know you. It's important to build a relationship and understand what you are looking for as far as a tenant and renting your home out. They're going to coordinate photography, they're going to coordinate advertising and marketing. It's really important that your property is listed on all of the biggest marketing platforms. Some of those platforms might be Zillow, HotPads, Rent.com, Redfin, Realtor.com, MLS. It's really important that you're getting the most exposure for your home. And I know it's a common practice. Some people don't list on Zillow because you actually have to pay to list your rental on Zillow. So you want to find an agency that's going to list your rental on the Zillow marketplace, as it's one of the biggest marketplaces for rental in the current market. Something else is your leasing agent's going to communicate with these prospective tenants. They're going to call them, they're going to get inquiries, they're going to text them, they're going to email them, and before they ever show the home to them, they're going to do a pre-screening. Make sure, hey, do you qualify? These are our basic requirements. And if they qualify and if they're looking to move in, you want to make sure that your tenants can move in within 2 to 3 weeks. If you have an applicant that says I can move in 2 months, that doesn't help you because that's 2 months of vacancy. And so usually they're not going to show to anyone that's not going to be able to move in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then when it comes time for actually showing the home, you should have an agent that shows it professionally. And a way to professionally show the home is your agent's going to show up to the home about 20 to 30 minutes early. They're going to turn on all the lights. They're going to open the windows, let it breeze through, and really just paint your property in the best manner. And then they're going to conduct these showings back to back to back to back. So your tenants are going to basically pass through each other on the way in and the way out, and it creates a sense of urgency. I got to apply, I got to apply. That's really important when it comes to leasing out your home with those in-person showings. Also, your leasing agent, like I said, should provide you weekly activity reports. You should establish with them, if they don't establish themselves, a date that you would like to receive these weekly updates. Maybe for you, you prefer to have it every Tuesday night or every Wednesday night. And let's say every Tuesday, they're going to send you a report. And on that report, they'll let you know we had this many inquiries on the home. We've had this many showings. There's this many applications. And if there's approved applications, these are the summaries of the applicant's qualifications. It's really important that there's good communication with your leasing agent. Next is they're going to procure a completed application. So we want to make sure that we have a full application from the tenants and they've been approved and they've passed all of the screening requirements that have been requested. Also, we want to make sure that the lease agreement, of course, is signed. Last but not least is the approved applicants sign the lease agreement and move in. That's kind of the leasing agent's role from start to finish. I've got a fun example here. We're going to kind of go over pitfalls of marketing. So this property is going to kind of break a lot of marketing rules, but first we'll just talk about what those rules are. Something you want to look out for is you want to make sure your property is not listed above market value. This property here was actually originally listed at $6,200 and there was absolutely no inquiries on the property and they reduced it $400. Listing at $400 over market value, that's an indication that it wasn't listed correctly. Something else is if it's not listed with the proper information or if it's not listed on all the key websites for rentals that we talked about. Maybe it's not listed on Zillow because they don't want to pay a fee. Maybe it's not listed on some of the Redfin hot pads, the MLS, maybe they don't have access to it. It's really important that you're getting the most exposure because you're going to have the most people looking at it. And then photography is a very, very important factor when it comes to a listing. I'm sure all of you have seen the difference between homes that have really, really good photography and really poor photography, and you don't even want to click on the homes with poor photography. We want to make sure that your leasing agent has professional, high resolution, wide angle photos of your home that really paints your property in a good manner. And we want to make sure that there's no lockbox showings. Like I said, we want to have a dedicated leasing agent. The problem with lockbox showings is you have no idea who's going into your home and what they're doing in your home. You don't know if they're leaving the window open, the door unlocked. They're walking into a dark home with nobody there, and it's really hard to lease a property out that way. There's also nobody to talk to them, to understand about the neighborhood, to understand if they're even going to be a good tenant for your home. Something else is you want to make sure that the home's not occupied and it's actually rent ready, like we talked about previously. So when you take a look at this listing here, we're going to talk about some of the things that they kind of missed the mark on. First, obviously, they listed it a little high. They listed it at $6,400 and they've reduced it down to $5,800. But after taking a quick look myself, I'm thinking it's probably closer to about $5,200. And you don't want your property to be listed too high because of that high vacancy. Something else too is a quick tip is if you can, take the price you want and reduce it by about $5. So if Marshall Reddick were to list a property at $5,800, we would list it for $5,795. The reason for that is there's some websites where you filter $5,800 below, it's actually going to filter out all of your $5,800 options. So you want to be on the most searches possible. So we have a no double zero policy. That's just a free tip as well. Something else you'll see is this property has a very quick description and it shows that it's unfurnished, but you actually see furnishing in the home. So it's kind of misleading when you're a potential applicant looking at it. Something else is the home's not available to move in because it's tenant occupied. We find this to be very problematic. As you even see here, it's hard to find people that want to move into a home that's not ready for them to move in, and your home becomes a stale listing and it becomes difficult to lease out. Also, when the tenants, let's say they actually move out in January, we have no idea if they've trashed the home, if there's work needing to be done, when it's actually going to be ready. And this might become a conflict. Let's say you did have a potential tenant that wanted to move in, but then you push that back a couple weeks and then they end up having to be released and no longer want to live in the home. So we just find it a good practice to only lease out homes that are not occupied and they are rent ready. Let's talk about tenant screening and tenant placement. It's super important how you screen your tenants. I basically like to say there's a 5-step process to tenant screening. First is you need to do a background check. Of course, we want to make sure that there's no felonies. We don't want any criminals moving into your home. That's important. Second is doing a credit check. Maybe 600 minimum credit score, but you got to take it a step further. We want to make sure that there's no evictions, no judgments, no bankruptcies. A good management company is also going to check to see if there's delinquent payments on different lines of credit. We just want to make sure that there's a pretty clean background as far as that credit looks. and that's going to be for all adults over 18. Third is you're going to do an income verification. So you're going to require at least 2 months pay stubs and at least 2 months bank statements of those pay stubs going into them. And you want to require about 2.5 to 3 times the monthly rental amount. I would say if you have a lower dollar amount in the sense of you're in the 2,000s to 5,000s, you're going to be looking more to 3 times the monthly rent. If you're on the luxury end, maybe your property is renting for 10,000 plus, maybe you should probably shift towards the 2.5 times the monthly rental amount, and that's going to be combined household income. Fourth, you need to do an employment verification. You need to actually call their employer and verify their employment status. You obviously want them to be employed, so it's important that you make sure they are indeed employed. Last is you should do a rental history verification. You should call their current landlords, and that's something a management company will do for you, and just ask a couple questions. Some of these questions might be, has this tenant ever been late in rent? Has this tenant ever had a notice posted on their door? Has this tenant ever violated their current lease agreement? We don't want repeat offenses, so those probably would be disqualifications for your screening requirements. Last is call their previous landlords before their current, and their previous landlords if they have that as well, and ask them, hey, when the tenant moved out, did they damage the home, right? Did you have to burn through their security deposit to pay for all the repairs? All of these are really important things to take into account when choosing a tenant for your home. And what we find often is when they've passed all of these requirements, typically these kind of tenants stay about 3 to 5 years. You're going to find quality tenants that stay about 3 to 5 years when they pass the requirements. So when it comes to a tenant move-in, it's a pretty simple process. First, the leasing agent's going to call them, they're going to screen them on the phone, and then they're going to show them the home in person. After that, if the tenant's interested and they're ready to move forward, they're going to apply for the property. They're going to get the full screening process, just like we mentioned on the last slide, and then they're going to be approved and they're ready to sign the lease agreement. And the lease agreement is going to kind of go with security deposit. A lot of companies require security deposit to be paid before the lease agreement's signed, and they kind of go hand in hand. But essentially, the next step is tenants are going to need to pay their full security deposit, and the security deposit should be 1 month's rent. And if you have pets, we would encourage you to have a pet security deposit, not a pet rent, a pet security deposit to hold up front. And for us, that's $400 per pet up front. And so they need to pay the full security deposit and pay a full month's rent prior to moving in, as well as they need to transfer all of the utilities into their name, that being gas, electric, and water and trash. And then they're going to send you proof of those utilities. All of these should be done before the tenants are given keys to move in. This is something that we require at Marcia-Reddick. Last is right before the tenants move in, there needs to be a full move-in inspection. And this move-in inspection is like what we mentioned before, but this move-in inspection should be sent to both the tenants and to the owner with all the photos and notes, and both the owner and tenants need to sign off on it. That way you have the proof. So when it comes time for a move out, you can say, nope, we have the proof here, you signed it, you agreed to it, and then you're gonna have the same inspection upon move out. That's very important that you have professional documentation of the home prior to the tenants moving in. So let's talk about what is professional property management. I know we kind of threw that word out a couple times in this presentation, but professional property management is going to kind of bring everything we talked about into one and make it super simple for you as an owner when it comes to renting out your home. I could spend forever on this slide, but I'm just going to read through these really quick. Basically, what we're looking at here is this is the life cycle of property management. So first, the property management team is going to have the initial property evaluation. They're going to be talking with you about your property, understanding your property, understanding any work's done or your goals, the background of it. And then what we want to do is we want to run you a rental market analysis, provide you an idea of what rental comps are going to be and how much your home can rent for. After that, we're gonna take a look at the management agreement. And we need to have the agreement signed for management to begin. You'll talk through that with your management company, and then you'll begin the landlord onboarding procedure. With this onboarding process, it's really for the management company to onboard you. Maybe there's a software where you're going to have a portal. On that portal, you'll be able to see your property documentation, collect all of your rent. For us, rent is dispersed on the 10th of every month, as well as a full income and expense statement. But this is all going to be done on the onboarding to set you up. So when it's time for rental, you'll be able to understand it. After the landlord onboarding procedure, you're going to be looking at the make ready repairs. This is where we're going to be doing the inspection of the home, gathering anything that needs to be done, providing you estimates, and then you approving those estimates as the owner, moving forward with the work to be done. Once the work's done, we're going to be taking professional photos, high resolution wide angle photos, and advertise that on all of the biggest marketing platforms. Then we're going to schedule showings, have these in-person back-to-back showings, and we're going to take in applications. These applications are going to be screened. We're going to do the proper background check. And then our goal is obviously to get the lease signed as quick as possible with the soonest move-in date. After the lease is signed, we're going to be having the move-in. We're going to do the move-in inspection, and the tenants are going to move in. And then there's just going to be maintenance during the lifetime of the lease. Maybe there's a question for repair. They'll submit it through the portal, and your property management company will let you know of that. And then you're going to have basically the mid-lease property evaluation. We're going to take a look at your home, take a look, see, hey, can we increase the rent when it comes time for renewal? Reach out to you about 3 months, provide you an analysis. And then either the tenant is going to go through an inspection for a renewal, or they're moving out. So when the tenant moves out, there's going to be the same onboard inspection as move-in inspection, comparing the two, and then we're going to be offboarding the tenant, deducting anything from their deposit and returning their deposit to them, and that's kind of the whole property management life cycle. I'm going to give you a quick second here. If you have any questions, let me know and write it in the chat. I know I said a whole mouthful there. So continuing on what professional property management is, basically there's 3 different services that are going to be provided. There's going to be a service provided for you as the landlord. That's going to be providing you monthly statements of your income and expenses, sending you rent, collecting, dispersing to you. We're going to be taking care of and handling any maintenance needed. We're going to be sending you annual 1099 tax forms, as well as full year today income and expense sheets. That's done by an accounting team on the back end. If there is any problem with tenants, if there's an eviction, that should be handled by property management. If there's a tenant screening and placement, and any bids for repairs, all of that's done for you as the landlord. For tenants, of course, we're going to be screening them. We're going to be doing the background check, and we're going through that 5-step process. We're going to be doing the showings. We're going to be taking care of their maintenance requests. I know at Marshall Reddick, there's a 24-hour emergency line for tenants to reach out to, or they can obviously contact us through their portal, and it's really simple and easy for them to use. The goal is that they feel that there's always someone ready for them to talk to. They can provide feedback if they need to. And then for your property, we want to make sure that we're keeping it up to date. Make sure that there's no deferred maintenance. Make sure that we're keeping tabs if you have a home warranty or a builder warranty. We're working with you on that, making sure if you have any HOA. I know for Marshall Reddick, we work on behalf of the owners with the HOA. If there's a violation, we send that to the tenants, make sure it's corrected. And yeah, it's just really important to understand the different services provided to you, the tenants, and your property. So taking a look at Marshall Reddick Property Management, this here is going to break down our fee structure. Ours is very simple and straightforward. There's really no startup fees to work with us. You actually won't see any fees until a tenant has been placed. And that's just part of us to make sure you know that we're willing to work for free until we have a tenant in place. It's an incentive. And for us, it's good to know that we profit when you profit. And what I mean by that is we charge a percentage of the rent when it comes to our fee structure. So you'll see there that the lease renewal fee, first and foremost, we want to do long-term leases, so 12-month leases. At the end of that 12 months, we want to renew it for another 12 months and do a full home inspection. That's what that 15% is. And we also want to increase the rent. Second is you're going to have the tenant late fee that you see there. So a lot of companies, when a tenant has late rent, they're actually going to keep that late fee because they do all the work to get it. For us, we actually want to split that with you 50-50. We charge the maximum late fee that the state allows that your property is in, and then once we collect it, we split that with you as the owner. Next, you'll see the leasing fee there. Leasing fee is to procure a tenant. That's only when you need to place a tenant. That's 50%. And that 50% is 50% of 1 month's rent. That's to do that full leasing cycle service that we talked about. And then as far as management goes, that'll depend on your property and the unit count, but you can see our structure ranging from 8 to 5% based on how many units you have in your building. So why choose Marshall Reddick for property management? Well, in general, it's really important to understand these different parts that I have here on the slide. So first and foremost is you need to have good software. Marshall Reddick uses AppFolio. AppFolio is going to be one of the top softwares in the nation for management. It's going to be really seamless. You can check all of your income expenses. You can run custom reports with different date ranges on it. And it's just overall a good software and interface for you to scale your portfolio. Second, is there a maintenance conflict of interest? And I can't stress this point enough. It's so important that you know that there's no conflict of interest. What I mean by that is there are property management companies that profit from maintenance. They might have a lower fee structure or a flat fee structure or a lower leasing, and they profit from maintenance because they have their own in-house maintenance team, or they get a kickback from a preferred lender. For us, that's a huge conflict of interest. So rather than doing our own in-house maintenance, we outsource our maintenance to our very large list of third-party vendors. All these vendors are licensed, bond insured, and have done hundreds and hundreds of repairs with us, and they know that they're going against other vendors, so they have to be competitive with their pricing. Next is cost versus service. What's more important? Well, you can always find someone to do it cheaper, but are they providing you the best quality service? I think it's important to weigh a lot of the things we talked about in this presentation when choosing a management company and understand, are you going to get the service that you're looking for? And if that's a no, then you might need to start looking for a higher cost service that provides you what you need. Are they responsive? They should be responding to any of your emails or texts or messages within 24 hours. That's a pretty good rule of thumb, or provide you an update of when they will respond to you. Check their online reviews. Feel free to look up Marshall Reddick Real Estate in your market and see what our reviews are. See what people say about us. You want to look for a company that has good reviews from both owners and tenants, and you obviously want to look for at least a 4 to 5 star review. Next is, what's your cancellation policy? Are you locked in for a very long time, or is it a standard policy? Here we have a 1-year agreement, and then it renews on a month-to-month basis. So after 1 year, you provide 30 days for termination, whatever that reason is. There are some policies that are going to hold you for longer. It's really important to understand that. If you want to take a look at our fee structure, you can look at our website, marshallreddick.com/management. So as we kind of wrap up here, I want to provide you with some good resources in case you needed to look through things or you had questions, or you want to do more research on your own. First is, any of our educational content is going to be on our Learn page, marshallreddick.com/learn. We have a bunch of articles and guides, and you can look at any sector of our company, the 4 that we talked about, including looking at turning your home into a rental, and you'll find all of those here on our Learn page. Next is, any of the markets that we have free market data packets in those markets. This one in particular is going to be the Clarksville, Tennessee and Oak Grove, Kentucky market. But if you go to our website on marshallreddick.com/market data, you'll be able to find any of the markets that you're interested in and take a look at different economic diversity and what makes that a good market for investment. Maybe it's your own market. Something else is, it's really important to understand property class. We briefly mentioned it here, but if you want to dive further into it, we have a free property class rating ebook on our website as well, marshallreddick.com/ebook. And then last but not least, I would love to meet with you, answer any of your questions. And if you are looking to either bring a home under management or turn your home into an amazing investment property, let's talk. Give me a call. Feel free to shoot me an email or a text. I'll be following up, like I said, with the presentation as well as the slide deck. But yeah, regardless, I really appreciate you guys for joining me tonight. and have a great night. If I don't hear from you, happy holidays and Merry Christmas. Thank you, guys.